Here's the fix for the exploding X3D chips. Here's the fix for the 3070 not having enough VRAM, and we know what AMD's launching next. You're not ready for it. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news that I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. And we're going to start off today with a continuation from a story from yesterday. We talked about how there are X3D chips that were popping up across the internet where they're being used with an Asus motherboard, and they're literally exploding internally and causing a whole lot of issues with dead components all around. This particular one that you see on your screen right now is being sent off to Steve at Gamers Nexus for further investigation. And as mentioned, it does appear like the vast majority of these issues are only happening on Asus motherboards. But that is not stopping other companies from getting involved in this, including MSI, who has issued several BIOS updates for X3D chips on their motherboards so that this does not happen, with them saying that these are irregular voltage issues that are happening and that these BIOS updates should prevent any sort of further issues from happening with the X3D chips. So you can see all the motherboards that support this new BIOS version that MSI is rolling it out with. They made a dedicated Reddit post about this. Good guy MSI for coming out with all of these details right now. If you're on any of these MSI motherboards have an X3D chip in it, go ahead and update as it is right now. But as mentioned, there is a bunch of posts about Asus motherboards having these issues with the X3D chips, as you can see in this Reddit post right here. However, there has been one found where a 7700X has actually died on a ASRock motherboard. So that is throwing a little bit of a weirdness into it, but it does seem to have the same physical deformation. And if you look in the comments of this, it does seem like Asus has been deleting BIOS updates where they might potentially have caused this error, where they posted it, had it up for a little bit, and then they took the BIOS version down because they knew it was in error, but they never publicly said anything about it. So there's some speculation that people are experiencing this issue if they had that one specific BIOS update. Additionally, Buildzoid from the channel Actually Hardcore Overclocking chiming in, saying that they didn't have an X3D chip die in an Asus motherboard, but their 7950X chip actually did. Admittedly, he was overclocking it, so it's not quite clear whether or not that could have been part of it, but it does appear like there are issues all around. Additionally, though, Igor's lab did an analysis of the spot where the chip saw the physical bulging and was able to conclude, based on the pinouts, that this is part of the VDD-CR or CPU core power supply component, where it likely was getting too much voltage and caused the damage that we're seeing through all of the pictures. So if you're on an X3D chip, just pay attention to your motherboard vendor at the current moment. If you're on Asus, disable Expo, disable any sort of overclocking that you've got going on right now. If you're on MSI, update to some of these latest BIOS. We haven't heard from any other motherboard vendor as of the time of recording, but we'll keep you updated here on Hot News in case you're interested in all of that to make sure that your PCs are staying safe. But in case you're not on an X3D chip, but you're looking to get some new goodness in your system, well, you should check out today's video sponsor, Jawa. Because Jawa is the marketplace for gamers by gamers, and their mission is to be the community where great gaming gear is sold at reasonable prices between gamers. So if you're not quite ready to jump on the X3D train and you want to upgrade to something a little lower, or if you are ready to jump on that train and you're ready to sell off some of your components, Jawa is the place that you should be doing that at. And on top of that, they have a group of verified sellers that are individually curated that are there to deliver you amazing value and completed builds for some of the best prices that are out on the internet if you're looking to upgrade to a system all in one go. They also have a very active Discord community where you can discuss all the things that you might be looking for in your next PC upgrade, or even this X3D issue that we're hearing about right now. You can get some of those details over at Jawa's Discord server where you can chat with like-minded gamers. But Jawa now also has a commissions build program where they'll partner you with one of their verified sellers. You just answer a short quiz about the games that you like to play, the FPS numbers you're trying to achieve, and what type of PC you need, and you will be automatically paired up with them to get a PC that's catered 100% to your needs. So whether you're looking to buy or sell components for your build, you're looking to get a build designed to exactly what you need it for, Jawa should be your place to go in order to make that happen. So big thanks to Jawa for sponsoring today's video. Check them out at the link in the video description, and buy, sell, chat about computer parts over there, a marketplace for gamers by gamers. But while MSI is trying to fix the X3 X3D issue. Another modder is trying to fix the issue that the RTX 3070 has. There's been a lot of discussion out on the internet regarding VRAM and how that can affect some of the gaming performance that we're seeing on NVIDIA's graphics cards. The 3070, 3070 Ti, 4070 only have 8 gigabytes, and when it comes to games like Resident Evil 4, The Last of Us Part 1, they are struggling mightily heavily. So a modder decided that they were going to replace the memory chips using a whole host of soldering equipment that you likely don't have access to. They were able to swap out the VRAM to make it an RTX 3070 16 gigabyte, which allowed for much better performance in a VRAM bound game like Resident Evil 4. Going from 1% lows of 7 FPS, as you can see on the right, to 1% lows of 69 FPS, allowing for a much smoother gameplay experience. However, even with this conversation, it's really cool that they put 16 gigabytes of VRAM on that. There's also been other videos out there where they've put extra VRAM on graphics cards just because they can. It does kind of lead back to the discussion, is it NVIDIA's fault that they are putting 8 gigabytes of VRAM on the graphics cards? A little bit, but it's also on the game developers where they are not optimizing these video games. The Last of Us Part 1, atrocious PC launch. The PC port was terrible, had tons of issues, bad optimization, and then it's being used in marketing by AMD to be like, look at how much VRAM you need. And it's like, well, yeah, because it was a crappy port. A lot of the games that have been actually good ports to PCs or good PC development actually don't need that much VRAM and are much better optimized. It's kind of a dance. Should NVIDIA be giving us more VRAM? Absolutely, especially with the prices that they're charging. But at the same time, we also need to demand better from game developers and say, hey, until you actually start giving us better optimization, we're not going to be buying your PC games. But are you going to be buying any PC parts soon? Reece got you. Reece, if you didn't do UFD Deals, I'd like to appeal that today, which is exactly what happened versus Apple versus Epic Games, with Epic being upset that Apple's not allowing another marketplace on their phone, and Apple being upset that Epic Games decided to take Fortnite's payments off of the App Store so that they couldn't get a cut of the transaction. So it actually was ruled in Apple's favor that they saw that there was no monopolistic tendency under either federal or state antitrust laws, however, saying that Apple should allow for third-party payment processing. So Apple very happy with this decision besides the payment one. But the court saying with Apple's restrictions in place, users are free to decide which kind of app transaction platform to use. Users who value security and privacy can select by purchasing an iPhone Apple's closed platform and pay a marginally higher price for apps. Users who place a premium on low prices by purchasing an Android device select one of the several open app transactions platforms which provide marginally less security and privacy. Apple's restrictions create a heterogeneous market for app transaction platforms, which as a result increases inter-brand competition, the primary goal of antitrust law. So Apple primarily winning on this decision. This likely will not be put to bed at the current moment. We'll keep you updated if there are any more appeals, which Apple says is indicating that they're reviewing whether or not they're going to want to go ahead with an appeal for having to allow third-party payment processors, but we'll let you know about all of that here on Hot News. Just like I'm going to let you know about the next graphics card that AMD is expected to launch. You would think that you could be getting something like a 7800 XT. Turns out, according to Igor's lab, that's not going to be happening. We're going to be getting the RX 7600 is the next graphics card that AMD is going to be launching at Computex, skipping the 7700 and 7800 series altogether for right now at the very least, in order to sell you something that's a bit more mid-tier. According to Igor's lab, this is going to be presented as a finished product at Computex. However, it's going to be a really complicated situation because you don't have the 7700 or 7800 in order to justify pricing based on that, or anything from NVIDIA that's competing in that price tier. So it's creating a weird situation where it's not quite clear how this is going to fit into the market once everything's shaken up. But according to reports, it does look like AMD is going to be prioritizing that mid-tier 250 to 350 price range, depending on where the 7600 or 7600 XT falls into place, which is good for consumers. However, it also is going to be in competition with whatever NVIDIA is going to be announcing at Computex, because if you remember, Jensen's actually giving the keynote on May 30th, which is something that he hasn't done, at least in the foreseeable history that I can perceive. And so there's some expectation that we might get a 4060 or 4060 Ti announcement from him, and then the 6600 is going to be placed in direct competition with that by AMD, which based on the pricing that we've seen out of NVIDIA thus far, it's not going to be super great competition. AMD doing a little bit better in the price department. However, I wouldn't necessarily give AMD AMD a ton of credit for this right now because, as we've been seeing with the RTX 4070 launch, the main comparisons that are coming up are the 6000 series by AMD, and they're still out there. They're still in abundance, and I just have to wonder, did AMD overbet on crypto, has an oversupply of all of their RDNA 2 chips, and that's why they're so hesitant to release something like a 7700 and 7800. They know they're not going to be able to sell off their excess stock of something like a 6950 XT because they bet too big on that for the crypto boom, and then they're left out in the lurch where they have these extra last-gen cards that don't have all the features that modern gamers are kind of wanting to use. Creates a weird situation. Is it because of mining? Is it because of bad betting? Or is that AMD's way of being strategic with price drops, giving us a 6950 XT for $599? Let me know what you think about all of that down below in the comments, and I'll let you know that I'll be back here for more hot news tomorrow, my friends. Don't you worry your sweet little brains about it.